can't believe we've taken so many steps backward in the whole process of race relations. Race has now become, I just find it hard to believe that we've allowed this to happen. My niece just sent me, my sister passed away, and my niece, handling all her affairs, and she sent me some photos that my sister had that I hadn't seen, because she wanted me to identify all these people. Well, there's one picture of me. We had African-American neighbors. There was a street that went around my house, and the street that went around one side, they lived there, and we went to school together and all. And there were two brothers, and one of them...
This is in Philadelphia.
Yeah, one of them was my age. And there's a picture of me hugging both of them, and I love the picture. And I was looking at me in that picture. I mean, I guess I was maybe 10 years old, 9 years old. And I'm thinking, I wasn't thinking about them being black, me being white. I mean, it never came into the discussion. The only time I remembered anything like that issue, they were over my house. We got one of the first TVs in the neighborhood. So they were over at my house, and we were laying on the floor in the living room, playing some sort of board game, watching this, and the two brothers, Butchie and Barry. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody came in, my father knew, came in, and he was like in shock. And he said something to my father about, how could you let him have two N-word? My father threw him out of the house and said, those are my son's friends. Don't you ever come in here, and don't you ever talk about them.
Yeah.
And I was just that age. To me, I remembered that for some reason. And I thought to myself at that time, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it is. That's the way my father raised me, You're not better than anybody else, and, we're all in this boat together, because, he was an immigrant to this country, and working in the steel mills and doing all that other stuff when he was growing up and everything. You were all in the same mix. You could be of any ethnic group, racial group, or whatever. And our neighborhood was mixed. It shocked me as I grew up, seeing those racial tensions increase, experiencing it in the military at a bad time in the 60s and all. But then thinking we had finally come to our senses, and you could say everything I was taught about this and experienced as a young kid now is, validated in some way. But then to see it come back this way is shocking. I mean, it's just that I don't know how we can regress to that point. To me, I always think the answer is education, education, education.
It's interesting. I mean, I've been a victim of police brutality 3 times, and had a gun pointed to my head, almost beaten to death outside of my father's house, and so it's. I remember those experiences, obviously, and, the last one happened like 30 years ago, and my mother and I actually wrote a play called Sleep Deprivation Chamber, which is about our experience as a family, because I was charged with assaulting the police officer and arrested, but we went through a criminal trial, we won that, the civil trial, we won that, and we put this play together, and it was done in New York, and it won Best New American Play at that time. But what I remember so vividly about it was that so many young black men came up to me and said, this has happened to me, this has happened to me, this has happened to me. And, I remember then saying to myself, maybe this is going to get better. And I think it's gotten worse. I do believe it's you talked about a variety of things. To me, it is institutional racism. And the fact that officer kept his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes. To me, there's nothing, it's like, I hate to use the word, let's say nigger, but at least to me, nigger means that you're valuing me a little bit as a human because you're trying to insult me. But this is no longer about being a nigger. This is about being absolutely nothing as far as I'm concerned. It's like you're a cow, you're a pig, you're chattel. And that's going back to slavery days. So that really is upsetting to me, that sort of calm demeanor that he had and the other officers, they didn't care. And so it's very, very depressing.
We've got to find out what it's going to take in the way of investment and building the mechanisms to ensure there's equality. and having the mechanisms in place to be sure that where we see racism raise its ugly head, that we're able to deal with it very effectively.